This is a Friday morning, dear viewer, and the rain is tumbling down where I am. Pat, is the rain tumbling down in your place? Donegal, Dunan now?
There's a wee weather thing at the bottom of my screen and it says heavy rain. They're dead right. This is Donegal and there is heavy rain.
I saw a very a satirical map. It was doing the rounds for a few days back, and it was reflecting on a certain organization.
I saw that as well.
Which wasn't right. Well, I totally disassociate myself from that. Okay, yeah. What shall we begin with, Pat? There's so many goodies. I suggest we start with the one that has been dominating everything for the last week, and which provided me anyway with some of the best television I've seen since Watergate. And that was the hearings with Ryan Tubridy and Mr. Kelly. What's Kelly's first name?
Noel.
Huh?
Noel Kelly. Noel.
Noel Kelly. Noel Kelly. Okay. Alan Kelly. God, there's so many Kellys in Ireland. Alan Kelly of the Labour Party said in the Dáil, I think, that at the course of the hearings, he said that he was more confused now than he had been at the beginning, rather than more enlightened. I think I can understand why he'd feel that way. But listen, am I right or wrong? Is this the score? Tubridy had a publicly announced payment from the RTE.
Yeah.
Tubridy and RTE, along with Renault, organised it so we get another 75,000 each year from Renault. They didn't tell the public. They told the public it was getting it minus the 75,000 a day actually it was getting. Yeah. That's it, isn't it?
Basically, yeah.
I suppose, why are we getting so it's all confusing and awkward and Kafkaesque and all the rest?
Like, that's the word, Kafkaesque. No, I've been on social media and I'm very much in a minority on it. I think there's a wee bit of a lynch mob as regards Tubridy. Now, I hold the view, Richard. See, you're organising this what do you call it with our Sim podcast, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying, right, Pat, I am paying you X amount, etc., etc., etc. And
which I'm not incidentally. Which I'm not incidentally.
By the way, I'm just planting that seed now, and I'll pay you X amount. Now, if I submit my bill and you pay me, and you say, by the way, submit it to my wife's account, put it into Maureen's account, etc., etc., and you say, well, I'm employed by you, and I submit the account, you do with it as your business, not mine. And as long as I declare to the revenue what I've earned, it's my business, and I'm in the clear. It's exactly what Tubridy done.
That's
now,
true.
They seem to be suggesting that he misled people and all the rest of it. Now, here, Jude, just the simple point: T are the ones that they're the semi-state body. They're the ones who have external and internal auditors. They're the ones who have a legal department. They're the ones who have accountants, and they're the ones who have a commercial department. So, if they said to Noel Kelly, who was Tubridy's agent, submit the bill, your invoice this way, should Noel Kelly sort of say, hey, wait a minute, oh no, I'm not doing it. He done what RT asked him. I fail to see why Tubridy and Kelly are in the dock, and RT seems to be, well, RT is now more in the dock than they were, that's for sure.
Well, listen, I agree with you, Pat. There's a smell of a public hanging about Tubridy. He's gone from hero to zero. And a lot of people, including myself to a certain extent, are sort of saying, well, hell rub it up him. But he hasn't broken the law, that's for sure. However, he has deceived, I believe, now I'm only guessing this, but I think it's a reasonable guess, that Tubridy, Noel Kelly, and RTE said, we're paying Tubridy so much, let's find a way of paying him another 75,000. I know we'll get a sponsor, and they got Renault in there, and it was behind the scenes, and they didn't tell people. So he actually was getting 75,000 more than the public were being told. The public were led to believe this man's on such and such. That's as far as his crime goes. For some reason, that has snowballed to the point where he is, totally outside the bounds of reasonable behaviour.
He's become sort of the poster boy of the scandal.
Yeah.
It should, and by the way, it's not what he was paid. It was how it was accounted for.
Yes.
You know, Jude,
Yes, that's it. That's it.
and I am adamant that that was RT. If RTE had done its job professionally, efficiently, and the way it should have been done, Ryan Tubridy would be totally and utterly in the clear. It had not. He, on his own accounts, submitted what he had earned totally upfront and honestly, and he if what he said to the PAC committee on Tuesday is accurate, he's totally revenue. He's upfront with the revenue. There's no problem legally. So I'm sort of wondering why is he the Al Capone of this whole saga.
Yeah. Well, I think, Pat, is this, that he and his account ran contrary to the RTE version of events. And as a result, there was bad blood. There's bad blood. And there's an irreparable bridge burning between him and RTE. And that's why his career is in sort of a real mess. I mean, where else is it to go? To Radio Ulster? to BBC NIE?
The little man in Radio Ulster is earning actually more than Tubridy.
That's true too.
And with a much smaller domestic audience. Now I know he does stuff for Radio 5, but what is he, the fifth behind various people behind Gary Lineker? He's the fifth highest earner.
Okay.
And by the way, they said he's earned between 400,000 and 405,000.
Oh yeah.
And they don't say what he earns from his private companies supplying programs to the BBC.
Grossly overpaid. Grossly overpaid, in my opinion. Definitely. I mean, there was a time when he probably was worth it, but he isn't now, in my opinion. Anyway, what would you do, Pat, if you had the power to make a final decision on this and put people where you feel they belong, whatever? What would you do? 20 seconds.
If I was Ryan Tubridy, I would give back the money that he earned, that he didn't earn. That's the best way of putting it. I think it's about 150,000.
That's it.
And I'm sure he's got enough in the bank. He's been earning quite well for 15, 20 years. I'd give back the 150,000 and say, right, my conscience is clear. I was not responsible for this. It's the way the thing was done, and I'll do a mea culpa in public by saying, look, I apologize for any hurt in the past, etc., etc., and I'll resume my career a much humbler and whatever person. And I think he deserves that chance to. And by the way, let's get this clear. I'm not a big fan of Ryan Tubridy.
That's exactly my own feelings, Pat. Exactly my feelings. You summed them up very, very well. I am not a fan of his, but that seems a reasonable conclusion, actually. Now, the question is, would the public stand that? Given the way it's been presented as him being the arch villain, can he?
Yeah, Jude, have you gone on social media? There's definitely a lynch mob. There's an anger about the two Irelands, and maybe he's become sort of some sort of nexus for that.
Like the
rich guy getting away with it again. And Jude, there's a genuine thing about that, and I don't think anybody can argue. It keeps coming back to this. When the corporations and the big guys are doing great, everybody thinks, oh, the country is awash with cash. No, it's not. Many people struggling big time. Dude, I was in a wee cafe yesterday. I'll not say where because it's unfair. Coffee,
why is it unfair to say where cafe was?
All right, okay, Keith. Just notice there's £3.50 for an Americano cup of coffee. £3 or €3.50.
That's stiff enough. Stiff enough. Are you saying that's a going rate, a reasonable rate, or are you saying?
Seems to be now, yeah. The price of everything. Hey, dear missus, the last day, she nearly fell off a seat when she got her electricity bill. Dude, it went up from something like 200 this time last year to 390 something. And nearly doubled. And she said, "Good God, no! This is the summer months, and we've hardly anything on."
The jump in prices has been so sudden; it's pretty awful when you run into it. But Pat, you and I are at the age we are and the state we're in. We're very, very lucky in terms of finance.
Absolutely,
very, very lucky. Okay, that's the Kafkaesque saga, which really isn't half as Kafkaesque as they're making out. You were agreed, Tubridy and RTE and Renault cooked up a wee deal, deceived the public, but to hell with it. Let him apologise, let him back in and see how he gets on. Neither of
Well,
us like them
you know,
really.
one point I just will make. I think really, see, it was during that COVID whole thing, and there was a lot of people sitting at home on COVID payments, and I know on someone like €300 or whatever it was
Yeah.
a week, and then to hear that somebody not only was he getting what was it 420 or 1,000, but then they give him 75,000. So I brought him his wages up to 505,000 a year, dude. That did piss people off big time,
Aye,
and
aye. And in a
and
sense,
that's Tuberty's problem. It's a
yeah,
PR, it's an image problem now.
aye, aye. In a way, really, he's not the only one. He's just a figurehead, really, when you think about
Yeah,
it.
he's a figurehead. Yeah, yeah,
About the division of wealth, particularly in the South,
yeah,
in
yeah,
terms of very, very rich and many people struggle to get past.
yeah.
One last thing, I find it kind of fascinating. I read a book one time by Ray Bradbury called Fahrenheit 451, and it was
Yeah.
about, among other things, books being burnt, but it also was about the way that people related to the figures in soap operas. And I would include this in soap operas, even beyond that. It's the people who read the news or who are presenters of RTE programs. They become our friends in a way, or they
Yeah.
become our enemies, or the people we kind of like or don't like. And we're accustomed to their faces, as the song says. And I
Yeah.
think that's part of, oh, Ryan, you have disappointed me so much. And I really liked you so much, and now you've let me down. It's an odd
Yeah.
thing that people relate to an image on a screen of a guy who will never meet you, will never speak a word to you, and yet you have strong feelings whether things should happen to him.
That's a very good summation. There's one of the TDs, I don't remember, I think he was from Kerry, now I'm not 100% certain, made the very point you're after making on at the PAC committee, Public Accounts Committee on Tuesday. He says, Ryan, you come into our house. He says, I know every morning. He says, my mother and father used to sit around and having their coffee, listening to your program, etc., etc., etc. And he says, when I got sort of married type thing, and we kept on doing it. And the way he was putting it was, you were somebody that was in our house every morning, and we regard you as a friend. Terry Wogan made the very same point, that he said a lot of people regard them as a personal friend because he was in their home every morning. And Jude, that's exactly the point. Maybe if you're sitting on your own and somewhere in Dublin, some apartment building, and you rarely see somebody, like your friend is the guy who's on the radio chatting to you like an old friend.
That's right. That's right. Okay, let's move across the water, because oddly enough, the story is dominating there. It's not
Yeah,
Tubridy, but it's another presenter, it's a newscaster,
yeah,
newsreader, and that's Hugh Edwards.
Edwards.
Poor Hugh Edwards. And my heart
Yeah,
sank when I heard it was him. I mean, I thought there were so many
yeah.
other people I would like to have seen being tied
And
to
I
the
know who you're
can
thinking on.
rather than him. But Hugh Edwards, I hope people won't find this rude, but I once stood in a men's toilet at a stall urinating, and who was urinating in the stall next to me? Hugh Edwards.
Hugh Edwards.
That's my claim to fame. I may never do anything better in life than that. Anyway, no, I thought Hugh Edwards, his face always had elements of bleakness. And
Yeah,
you could well believe this man is having mental difficulties. And they stretch
yeah,
back for a long, long time. My point would be this, and it's a bit like Ryan Tubridy. The police have said he didn't break any laws. So BBC is now calling for a law review. They've got to find out what happened, what didn't happen, and so on. I would ask the question, why? If he hasn't committed any crime, why should they need to do all this checking out?
I think it's a symptom of the modern world, Jude. From what I've read, and it's cursory. There are suggestions that there is an abusive power in the relationship. He's one of the flagship guys of the BBC, and apparently, but Jude, some of the stuff he's supposed to have done seems so minor. He sent somebody an email, and at the end of it, he went XX and a heart or something. And somebody said they thought that inappropriate, and it was. I know, and there's going on this thing too about the suggestion that he has sent a number of emails to other people that were inappropriate, and it's sort of, what's that term, Jude, and sort of when there's an imbalance in the relationship, he's the big powerful guy, and they're down at the bottom, and they feel under threat. Now, Jude, years ago that was just part of life that you in any organization, the guys up on the top had all the power, and you just learned to live with it. Now, I'm not saying it was right, but Jesus, Jude, I never thought it was a massive issue. You can tell somebody to F off, no matter who you are. But this seems to be, does seem to be a wee bit of a snowflake generation. I've been sending you an email and put XX at the bottom, big deal.
Well, I think it sort of reflects not just the British, but our attitude to sex, because inequality extends far beyond the question of some guy like Hugh Edwards using his status to sort of seduce this young person. I mean, the big bosses in the BBC, the big bosses in RTE, I'm sure they give the ordinary yokels who do the work, I'm sure they give them a hard time. I'm sure they use their authority to kick them around, but nobody says a word about it because there's no sex in it. But there was there's sex in it, and everybody gets awfully indignant and moral and so on, which is a bit crazy when you think about it, because in terms of sex, we say nowadays, as distinct from the past, we say you can do what you want to. You really can do what you want to. You can be a heterosexual, homosexual, you could be bisexual, you can be GLB, whatever. And yet, when this comes up, it's really shock, horror, terrible. The one thing I would say is this: the Sun newspaper was the one that broke this story. Somebody should put the Sun newspaper out of business. That's in my opinion. Somebody said they used to have a page 3, maybe they still have it, where they had 16-year-old girls naked from the waist up, and everybody rubbed their hands and said, "Oh God, this is great." So these are the people that are moralizing about Hugh Edwards. Get out of here.
Yeah, about images. You start off by saying that the finding of the police, that so far they can find no illegality, and they're not going to take it any further. Now, what happens down the track is another matter.
Yeah,
and the BBC is going its investigation. So, what business is of yours or mine or the Sun's? If Hugh Edwards has done nothing illegal, shouldn't everybody just butt out?
Yeah, but I mean, they clearly, as I say, the people are obsessed. People are obsessed with something that involves sex. And again, it's this thing about sex. It's like The Village, isn't it? Mrs. Murphy, that seems such a good woman. My God, she's been sleeping around the whole time. That's what it is. We've developed this.
Jude, as you said there earlier on, the Sun, this sort of moralizing, I think they just threw Hugh Edwards onto the bus for him to get more readers. Right, Jude, they put Samantha Fox. Have you remember Samantha Fox?
Yes, I remember well.
I think she was 15 when they took the first topless photographs of her, and waited until the day after she was 16 and published them. And these are the people who are moralizing about inappropriate photos.
Well, the only proper response I've seen to the Sun was in Liverpool, because they will not stock it now. You'd have a hard job getting a copy of the Sun newspaper in Liverpool, because the Sun newspaper maligned the people, the Liverpool supporters, the time that, remember that terrible tragedy where they were crushed? And they said that Liverpool fans had been urinating on the dead. They had been rifling their pockets so they could steal from them, all sorts of ghastly stuff. But the good thing was that the people of Liverpool, from what I understand, said, no, we're not going to touch your paper ever again.
Yeah.
If more people would do that, I think that might make Rupert Murdoch and his friends whistle.
One final thing on that you're on about. I would think Hugh Edwards, if the facts are as we currently understand them, when he gets well again, I think his lawyers will be having a serious look at the Sun's coverage of his case. I really genuinely believe that.
I really hope so. I really, really hope so. And I hope they win their case too. It'd be terrible if they took a case and he wasn't able to get a conviction. Okay, let's move on to another one. This is one that intrigues me. It's from RTE News. And the heading is, "Not Realistic for All Sport to be Free to Air, Committee Hears." And this is to do with GAA in particular. And for that matter, the Republic of Ireland soccer team. It's not free to air. Time and again, I go to see a game on telly, a big game, like there was a Kerry was playing somebody, I think, and I couldn't get it because they had sold it to, I don't know who was it, Disney or Virgin
Yeah,
Media.
GA Go or Go GA or
GA
something like
Go, yeah.
that.
What is going on? I mean, is it that the GA doesn't have enough money? The hell, they've got plenty of money. I mean, they charge prices for
Yeah.
getting in, and it's hugely popular, and everybody's proud of it. So now, why now are they really screwing people and not allowing them to see the damn games?
Yeah, well, they had a contract with Sky. I don't know what's going on there, but and that meant you had to have Sky before you could see a lot of the
Yeah.
big matches. So that meant you're enriching Rupert Murdoch. And okay, they said it was a good deal because they were getting money from Sky for yes, I can see you getting animated there. Go ahead.
You're right. You're right. They were getting money. Of course, they're getting money. But have they not got enough money? And do you sell? Do you get money so that that part of the deal is your supporters won't be able to see the team they support? That's crazy.
Uh, no, Jude, I totally agree with you. I think look, I have you read Joe Brolly and all these guys. Joe Brolly claims, as do all the others, I should point out, that the GA is a grassroots organisation. It's built from the ground up. It's communities, it's clubs, it's and you go down, people volunteer, etc., etc. And Jude, they have earned an absolute fortune. They get considerable grants from the government too, and all this sort of stuff. And Jude, when the All Ireland semi final in hurling and GA, they've all the All Ireland final in football and so on, and you can massive crowds. They during the year. If you look at Clonus, the Ulster final, at the place is usually packed. So I presume the coffers are getting filled up regularly. So why they need more money and why they go sell their soul to the devil in regard to this TV deals with Sky and stuff. I just don't know, Jude. If it's, as they say, a community organisation, it should be available free to air for everybody so that we can all watch it.
I think they should have the equivalent of a referendum. I think GAA supporters, people who go to games, should be, if you've gone to a game in the last year, say, then, or even you're just interested in the game and watch it on TV, you should have a vote and have a vote to say, should we have free to air games for supporters of the GAA? And if they say no, we'd rather they've got the money and so on, fine. But who's making these decisions? It must be a small group of people at the top of the GAA. Would it be right?
Yeah, no, and the old one was the acronym, Grab All Association, and there's still an element of truth in that. There does seem a greed in the GA that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Jude, there are so many people involved, and it's a very simple thing, Jude. Each weekend, the RT should cover the two big matches, whatever they happen to be, and they don't have to cover every match under the sun. Nobody's asking that. But if it's the Ulster final and of course it's Donegal defeating Tyrone as usual, it should be covered. And if it's the same, if it's a hurling match somewhere, Kilkenny versus Limerick, which by the way is sometimes a great game, I'd love to sit down and watch that as well.
Yeah. But
By the way,
I suppose
isn't Derry doing great this year?
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting to see. Interesting to see against Kerry. Don't fancy their chances, but I hope. Yeah. I really hope they beat them. But anyway,
so do I.
The reason that they give for this thing, their excuse for not having free to games free to air, is that the GAA Go makes GAA games available around the world. So if you're a subscriber in Sydney or a subscriber in Vancouver, you can get seeing the same games with the same coverage, same commentaries.
Are you telling me that
it internationalizes the game?
Bollocks, Jude. The RT could put it up on the air themselves, available, through the internet, and there are other options available to them.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Take a point. I never thought of it before, Pat. Thought you're very clever. Huh? Have you ever been told that before? Okay.
No, never. That was never told it at school. Anyway, that's for sure.
Okay. The next item is what you choose to call the glorious Twalfth. I thought that actually was the day that they started shooting pheasants. Isn't that right?
That's usually
that's distinct from peasants. Do you think, Pat? And some people have said this, that the 12th celebrations, the Orange Order celebrations, are on the decline and really is a country for old men, and that's sort of dying on its feet. as they march. Would you agree with that or not?
I did. I would. In fact, one of the first things I noticed this time around was the fact that see the crowd standing out quite. In certain places, there wasn't exactly three deep. But anyway, these your old men on the march, Jude. One of there was an internal document in Belfast, the Orange Order in Belfast. You know that the march is 5 miles out to the field and 5 miles back.
Aye.
Right, 10 mile walk. The cohort of people now marching are of a certain vintage, and Jude 10 miles, 10 mile walk. The internal document suggested that they took 6 miles off it. In other words, they do a sort of circuit around the town in Belfast and go home. And now there's considerable controversy within the ranks about this whole thing. But the reality is, I don't think if you're 70 or 80 or whatever, other than somebody like yourself, who's a very fit man, should if you're 15, 18 stone and you're 65 and it's a sweltering hot July day and you've on a three-piece suit and a shirt and tie and a bowler hat and whatever, by Jesus, I'll tell you, by the time you reach a heart attack, it'll be sort of coronary hill type of thing, if you know what I mean.
Well, you see, the Twalfth consists of two things. One is the march, and the second is the field. Now, when they got to the field, they would have these various, in the old days anyway, they used to have these various fiery speeches about Fenians and look out for the Republic trying to take us over and so on. The other thing was the march. I think that instead of saying, let's cancel the field thing, I think you should do it the other way around. I think they should cancel the march thing and then meet at the field and have as many fiery speeches as you want to parade around the field if you want to. Wouldn't that make more sense? But I think in their heart, you see, it's this whole thing. They still want to go down the Drumcree Road because the Fenians don't want them to do it.
Yeah. Jude, I can't argue with because that's hey Jude, I know you're not a big social media fan. I tend to get involved in various things and so on. And have you been have you been on social media this last while, Jude? You talk about revisionism as regards the Orange Order. I was I was driving last Monday. I was going to Buncrana last Monday, and Mervyn Gibson, Reverend Mervyn Gibson, Grand Secretary of the Orange Order, was on with whoever it is. There was some girl on doing the known show whose name escapes me. I'm sorry. Anyway, he was on and he was basically saying Garvaghey Road is unfinished business, and it's those what we intransigent residents and the bigot. He didn't know, he used the word bigot. You have to be honest, but he suggested it was bigoted that the fact that they wouldn't allow the Orange men to go down the Garvaghey Road. And I'm going, on what planet has anybody that can come out with a now? Your man Kevin Maher, he's a former Labour Party advisor. He came on, he was on, and he went bananas. Basically, he started saying, "Are you people for real? You want march down a Catholic area where you're not wanted." He basically suggested march wherever you want in your own areas, march all day, but don't go where you're not wanted. Yeah. Surely, in any civilized society, that is so obvious. Why does it need to be stated publicly?
Well, we see the point of the march is to annoy people. Maybe I'm being unfair, but that's my gut feeling is that the point of the march is to annoy the other crowd. Is there mosquitoes there?
I don't know. There's a wee fly just went past me there.
Yeah, the point is to annoy people. And if they can't get the chance to annoy them, then what's the point? What do you think, incidentally, of the idea was put forward? I'm not sure it was Mervyn Gibson or who it was, but somebody suggested that there should be the 12th should be celebrated. It should be a national holiday in the south as well as in the north. And Joe Brawley said it was an exceptionally good idea. Did you hear that?
There's a guy. He's a Peter Costello. I think he's a Green Party guy. He came up with this idea.
What do you think of that?
I don't know. Like if it helps, unification. If it helps, so whatever. Okay. Like personally, I would like Jude. Right now, July 12th is not a Mardi Gras. It is not an open to all. It is not an inclusive, and there's serious amount of sectarianism and all the rest of it. If it stays as it is, I wouldn't be in favour. If, however, it was opened out and it sort of became inclusive, and they dropped the sort of the burning of bonfires with finions on them and Irish tricolour and so on. Right then, we could certainly talk about it, and I'd be more than willing to have an All Ireland July 12th holiday if it was sort of inclusive and we could all
No,
join
don't
in.
forget, Pat, don't forget, you wouldn't be allowed to join it. No, would I?
That's the point I'm making. That's exactly the point of.
So
But by
in
the way,
other
let
words,
me move on to one thing. Go on, tell me something. You were born and raised there. I wasn't. How is a burning of a 200-foot bonfire? Under what terminology or heading or any word you or adjective you like to use is that culture?
well, just one small correction, Pat. I wasn't born in the north. I was born in Donegal. Okay.
Well, so was I.
Rugger, nunanal,
Don't let me.
Jerome. Anyway, yes. Well, it depends what you mean by culture. You see, to some extent, some people would see habitual actions or events as being part of the culture. You know, we tend to think of culture in a kind of maybe a fairly narrow sense as being works of art or music or dance or whatever. Other people would talk about a working class culture, which might include going down to the pub on a Friday night. So I think it's in that sense that they're saying, "Oh, this is our culture. This is something we've always done." The point at which I depart from, I think they're fair enough to say it's a culture, but I think we've all had parts of a culture that was very bad, and we have abandoned them. Part of a culture once was putting people as slaves to do work. Once we used to have a culture that sent wee boys up chimneys to clean them. So we dump the bad culture and we try to make it, things better. So if you fill it, the trouble is, Pat, your vision of an All Ireland Orange 12th would involve changing the rules of every rule practically in the Orange Order. You'd be filleting it, gutting it, and I don't think that the Orange Order would.
I have no objection if they want to march to celebrate the Battle of the Boyne. Fair enough. If they want to sort of have fiery speeches at the field, fair enough. But if they start referring to people, in derogatory terms or bigoted terms or whatever. But anyway, Jude, one of the things you're talking about fiery speeches. I saw Jim Allister had one at Brockshane where he said the sticking plaster of the protocol was never, and that anybody who returned to Stormont to and help to bring about our own destruction should be shunned. So, Jude, I know we're down to 5 minutes, but I think the chances of Jim's views are predominating and Unionist thinking Stormont ain't coming back anytime soon. So I am wondering where we're going from here.
Do you think that I don't? I think it will come back. I think it will come back. I think.
Yeah, so but the proviso I was making there, if he is the dominant thinking in unionism, where are we going?
Yeah. Well, that's fine. I don't have any problem with Jim's views. In fact, I'd encourage him to speak out as often as frequently as he can, because that will help to improve the image of unionism and where it's going. Yeah. It does look like really, I don't think we appreciate the extent to which a whole change is happening politically, culturally, socially, everything, demographics. There's a huge change, and I'm just praying that I'll stay fit and you'll stay fit long enough to see the change that's going to come. Okay, we're on a last item then, Pat. You brought this one up. It was about Pierce Doherty. He's an awful man, Pierce Doherty. He's always shouting. Some of the newspaper reporters say Gulders. Would you say he's a bit loud?
No, he gets. I don't know him well, but years ago when I had my other life when I was a newspaper editor, himself and Patrick McLaughlin came in to see me. The other Sinn Féin TD. Yeah. Patrick is very friendly and outgoing and all the rest. And I noticed right away, while Patrick was doing all the sort of social, that Pierce just wanted to get down to business. He wasn't interested in small talk or whatever. Hey, he's a very intense man. But the point, Jude, I was listening to a bit of the debate. And Dublin, they started this children's hospital with the original bill for it. It was going to be a world-class hospital. That was the projection, and that was the project. And the bill for it was 560 million. This was about 2015, 14, whatever it is. It was disclosed the last day that the bill is not the projected cost now is somewhere in the region of 2 billion. In other words, the cost has tripled in about 10 years, and 2 billion and rising. Jill, I'm going, what sort of contract did these people sign with the contractors? How is it? By the way, they're a Dutch company. I think it's called BAM. Going, how come
Appropriately.
and they're wham bam, thank you, ma'am, whatever it is, But I never cease to be amazed. The cost overrun now. It'll apparently, when it's finished, this is the salient point. It will be the most expensive hospital ever built in the world.
But it'll also be one of the best hospitals in the world for that type of thing. I think the idea was a really good one. But as you say, I think
no one's dismissing that.
The operation was very bad. Maybe you see this. This must be a part of building stuff. I don't understand. I mean, if I asked somebody to build a house for me, I wouldn't. And we signed a contract. There's no way they're going to get any more money from me than whatever I signed up to.
That's the point.
I'm only getting them 4 times that at the end. But there must be something about public buildings and big buildings. Maybe they stretch over a long period. There'll be things like inflation and so on. But could they not originally allow for that and have it written into the contract, despite inflation, this is what we're going to pay you? You'd have to agree on it.
My brother-in-law was in the contracting business in England and all the rest of it. And he was involved in roadworks. Now he was an employee, but for the company he worked for, he said, they would sign a contract, and they would also have a time span for doing the work.
Yes.
And if they ran over the time, there was a penalty clause. And so he said, if it was coming close to the deadline and they were behind schedule, he said they were working nights and at weekends to ensure that they did not get the penalty clause, which was quite severe, didn't kick in. Judge, here we are in this one. We're now nearly 3 times the cost.
How could that happen? Are the people who signed up to it, are the members of the DAL, the public money, the people in charge of the money, are they stupid or are they corrupt?
But you asked the question of Pierce Doherty Guldern. Pierce was Guldern with a very good cause.
Well, yes, I agree. I would agree.
There's no one seems to.
Yeah.
He says the minister's asleep at the wheel, and he says this is a disgrace. And he's dead right.
But the trouble is, they're so far in now they can't go back. So much money has been spent on it. They're going to have to keep on spending. But I mean, they should learn a lesson from that. All right, we're in the last minute. We've only about 30 seconds left. Is there anything you'd like to say to the people? They were asking for a history of
Have a good weekend.
Huh? Have a good weekend. It's going to pour rain. How the hell could you have a good weekend if it's going to pour rain? Derry or Kerry? Derry or Kerry?
Derry.
Derry. Oh, Derry. Okay.
All the best, Jude.
All the best. Oh, that was good. Did you see we got over 500 the last one?
No.
Over 500. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Robert Bowie.
Oh, up was.